How's it going, peeps? Welcome back to Viva La Coin. I am Joe. I will be your host for today's episode. This one's going to be a little bit off the cuff because as we saw, the price of Bitcoin dumped just like I was talking about. It was going to over the course of my last 4 videos. However, I still received a flood of texts and phone calls and different people reaching out worried about the price and what is going on and why is this happening. So I'm going to put to rest any fear or doubt on what's currently happening in the market. I'm going to explain behind the scenes who is pulling those strings and scaring you out while they buy your Bitcoin. And ultimately, as you know, I'm making a push to get to 100 subscribers before I repeat a Hawaiian shirt. I'm currently running through the last couple tier 3 long sleeve Hawaiians that I have. And if you're going to share a video, this is going to be the one to share. So if you could, share this video to anyone in your life that you know that's in crypto that might be a little bit afraid, because we are about to expose everything that's going on and why, in fact, you should be excited. So I'm just going to jump into this real quick. And again, kind of off the cuff, but this is something that I believe is important for everyone to understand what's going on. So bear with me as we get started here. So I'm going to pull myself down and minimize myself. Now, as you can see, this is the minute chart for Bitcoin. It is just up and down, about as volatile as you could possibly see it. And yeah, watching the minute charts usually doesn't mean anything. Most people in technical analysis watch 4 or 6, 1-day charts. But for me, what I look at when I pull this chart up is when we dump, how hard do we dump? Is it selling over time? What does it look like? And it was actually updating so fast that I took a screenshot of this specifically. Right now we're at $51,000. And I kept mentioning that we had a big futures expiration date coming up right on the 26th, which is tomorrow, Friday. Now, all that means is a bunch of greedy fucks bet on the price of Bitcoin, who a lot of people shorted it. A lot of people thought it was going to go down. Well, they're sorely disappointed because it didn't. And not only did it not go down, but they haven't purchased any Bitcoin in order to set themselves up for the future infrastructure that's to come. And as you can imagine, that culmination of greedy assholes and trust fund babies and whoever else makes up the wealthy individuals behind the scenes that make those decisions want to dump the price as hard as possible. So this is a screenshot of the minute charts that were up at around yesterday afternoon, around 1800 military time, I believe. And that is right around 2 p.m. yesterday when we started that first big dump. Now, we look at this. This isn't an hour chart where everyone's like, oh, I think the sentiment of Bitcoin's bad. I think we're dumping. This is the minute chart right here. And when we look at how quickly that dumped, we're dumping 800 Bitcoin at certain points in a single minute. And they do that in order to drive the market down. And there were already reports of different banks that did the research that $93 million worth of Bitcoin that is either purchased or sold can affect the price by 1%. Because keep in mind, it's not about all the Bitcoin that's already owned in your wallet and cold storage. It is the Bitcoin that is still available on exchanges and what people are willing to sell or buy it for that denotes the price. So they load this up onto certain questionable exchanges that have been tied up in other problems in the past at 100 times leverage. And they dump this shit as hard as they can, as fast as they can to panic the market. And they know that everyone just got their stimulus check. There's a lot of new people in the market. There's a lot of bullish sentiment out there right now. But if they dump this, all these new people that don't know what's going on, that just got in, that just bought it at 57K, what are they going to do? They're going to panic and pull their money, and then they're going to buy your Bitcoin at a discount. And then as it goes back up, you're not going to be able to afford the same amount that you previously had. So that's one aspect of this. Now, this all occurred on the same tail end of the news that Elon Musk and Tesla said that they'll be accepting Bitcoin as payment. Now, you may think that that isn't big news, or maybe it's a stunt that Elon pulled, because everyone seems to think that his acknowledgement of Bitcoin or his tweets and different things that he puts out oftentimes would show that, oh, he's just screwing around the market. He doesn't care. He's already rich. The biggest part of him accepting those payments is Bitcoin paid to Tesla will be retained as Bitcoin and not converted to fiat currency. And that is massive. That's basically them acknowledging the fact that they would rather hold Bitcoin if you bought a Tesla with it than change it back into US dollars. Now, I know that the strength of the US dollar is weakening, especially since we continue to print trillions upon trillions of dollars. And if we know that, what do you think the banks and what do you think the government knows as they keep kicking that can down the road? It is a debt-based system that we currently live in. That 1.9 trillion or the other 3 trillion to come that were announced, that isn't money. That is debt that is then put on our balance sheet that we will have to pay back in either taxes or see reflected in inflation. They are not doing us any favors. There is nothing good to come out of this. This is a culmination of decades worth of stupidity and corruption in the US government, how we handle our monetary policies. But on the same aspect of that, I mentioned that there were these massive future dates coming up. When I say massive, it is $6 billion in options that expire on Friday. So anyone that wanted the price to be lower, if you think back to that GameStop debacle where they were shorting the market and then it shot through the roof and they were hemorrhaging billions of dollars because the price went up, this is kind of like that same thing where they're like, oh my God, when all these expire, we're going to have to re-up or pay some of this. Let's dump it as hard as we can in order to save ourselves as much as we can. And then everyone else, all the other institutions, the different governments, they're all buying. The only people that really suffer here outside of the greedy individuals that shorted Bitcoin or were betting against it are the average everyday person that are just getting into the market. At this same time, now that date on the 26th, this is the largest futures expiration throughout the entire year. January was big, February was big, and March is the largest. Now, if you look at the last week of every single day that was popping up with futures expiration, all we see is those same dumps occur. Now, I'm going to pull up a separate chart. I didn't even have this pulled up to show you, but we're going to look at this. So over the course of the last couple months, what did we see in the early days of each week leading up to the final Friday in each month? We saw Bitcoin start getting closer, dump. We saw it right in the middle of that second to last week of February, flash crash. And then what are we seeing coming up on this one? Another dump. This isn't bearish sentiment. They're not selling because they don't believe in Bitcoin. This is them dumping the price to shake other people out, to mitigate the damage, and to buy more. And ultimately, when you're looking at, well, what's the sentiment of these large asset managers, these big institutions? Well, Fidelity yesterday, in the middle of what is driving people out of the market and panicking everyone, what did they announce? They plan to launch a Bitcoin ETF, and they actually filed this with the SEC in order to begin laying the groundwork for that. And guess who else did? Their other buddies, Morgan Stanley. They were first. They became the first big U.S. bank to offer its wealthy clients access to Bitcoin funds, and they applied for an ETF. None of this stuff is new, and they understand the value of it. They understand they can't stop it. So what are they going to do? They're going to try and buy as much of it as they can while keeping you out of the market and scaring everyone else out so that when this does take root and as we head in this direction, they still have the power. For them, it's even more so than about money. It is about the power to control the assets or the funds or the wealth, whether it's fiat currency, Bitcoin, gold, it doesn't matter. What you need, they want to control, because if they control that, they control you. And as you see all this transpire, what happened on Monday? When we had that first big dump down to 53,000, simultaneously with that, there was a 14,000 Bitcoin over-the-counter sale from Coinbase Pro. And that was likely a massive institution or possibly even a different governmental entity somewhere in the world that purchased that much Bitcoin. They are buying. Every time it dips, they are buying. Every time there's fear in the market and we all sell, they buy. And then simultaneously, they'll kick out every article under the sun. Oh, is Bitcoin done? Bitcoin could go to zero. Everything is fraudulent. It's all going down. No, the real truth of it all is our current economic system is fraudulent. All that money that we injected into the stock market is driving it through the roof. The fact that bond yields are going up is why you have so much volatility in the NASDAQ and some of these other stocks. And as soon as stimulus stops, or as soon as we actually have to have a viable economy to justify how expensive all the stocks are, they're going to crash. That's just the truth of the matter. We haven't invested our money in there because we're doing anything as an economy. Everything was shut down. Plus, the price of all the supplies that go into the things that we buy and the commodities we spend our money on, that's already going up. Now, the New York Dig is a accelerating future financer, a Bitcoin, not trust, but they help in investing in digital assets. And they actually just were pinned in a tweet yesterday talking about who may be interested in buying. But they're already ahead of everyone else, and they filed in order to have a what? Bitcoin ETF. And who is showing interest? New York Dig CEO confirmed governments are inquiring about buying Bitcoin. Because all those other governments over in Nigeria that said they were going to ban Bitcoin because their population was literally buying it through the roof because they can't afford to spend their own currency because it's so devalued and such trash that they can't get by. But the government would rather have them stuck with that, unable to buy cryptocurrency because they care more about their power than they do about their population. Well, guess what? They still couldn't stop them, and now they have to come out and try and find a different way to regulate it. All the governments all met up early last week to try and come to a conclusion on how to regulate it, and they couldn't figure it out. So they do not know what they're doing with this, so all they can do is buy it and scare you the fuck out of your crypto. So as we go through this and we look at all these different things, we need to understand why Bitcoin is doing what it's doing. And it's not a matter of, it's showing weakness, it's falling apart. There are cycles to this, and I've discussed this multiple times, whether it is the Bitcoin halving or what drives the price or supply and demand and who's interested in it. Those are the things that drive the price, and those are the things that matter. And ultimately, when we look at what they're trying to do and how they're trying to do it, if you were unaware of these things, if you lean on the mainstream news, or you're trying to figure out whether or not your investment is safe or whether or not you should get in, all signs point to no. And that is so fucked, I can't even begin to tell you how irritated I am that I have to watch on a minute chart when tracking Bitcoin, essentially the power struggle between the good of the world and decentralizing and making these things accessible to every person around the world, and the greedy individuals that have had flawed systems in place for decades that have basically exploited and undercut their populations around the world, try and drive them out so they can buy more and maintain what small modicum of power that they would have if they were able to get enough of it and keep enough people out of it. So ultimately, that's my message today on Viva La Coin. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe, because next time when everyone else reaches out and texts me and calls me and says, hey, what's going on? I'm just going to say, hey, I covered this on the channel. Here's what's going on, and go and watch that video, because I understand. I know, even me, knowing why things are happening the way they're happening, it still turns my stomach inside out, because we are not wired to watch a ton of investment shoot up through the roof and then dive down to the floor. We're not wired like that. And yes, by definition, I'm probably a little bit oversaturated in the crypto market, but that's because I do not believe in our current markets or how they're being manipulated, which we saw on full display in public with the GameStop saga. So ultimately, please subscribe. And if you were ever going to share one of the videos that I put up on this channel, this is the one. Let people know what is going on. Do not get driven out of your crypto, because this isn't a game. And this isn't something that they're just putting out shit news about because they have nothing better to do. This is laying the groundwork for the future of pretty much every single financial underpinning that we have across the entire worth. And you want to be a part of it. You do not want to be playing catch up, because on that end, you're just going to be sitting there holding a bag of $29 trillion worth of debt as they raise your taxes and tell you, here's how much you owe. Aside from that, thanks for joining us on this emergency update on Viva La Coin, and I will catch you guys next time.